And we are recording. So welcome to yet another cool virtual Earth Day event. And I am super excited to introduce one of my buddies and friends. I'm actually part of her Master Watershed program. This is Natalie Marioni, who is with the Penn State Extension Agency. She oversees the Master Watershed Steward program and the Master Gardener program as well, right, Natalie?
Yes.
All right, but none
Berks
of that
County.
matters. Oh, right, in Berks and Schuylkill County. But none of that is matter because why you're here today is you are like one of the super, and I say it lovingly, super geeky turtle experts, right?
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I definitely geek out about turtles. That's absolutely true. And I take that in the most positive reflection of me.
Very cool. Well, so then why don't we just start with why turtles? Like, how did you fall in love with turtles?
So I really fell in love with reptiles and amphibians together. So the very first time I took a biology class in undergraduate, my undergraduate program, and I found my very first salamander. That was the hook for my love of reptiles and amphibians. Turtles, of course, are reptiles. But really what prompted me to want to study them and learn more about them and work with them was that I feel that sometimes they're underappreciated. You think of something like a timber rattlesnake, a reptile that a lot of people are fearful of, but is endangered in a lot of its region. A lot of our, 9 of our 13 species of Pennsylvania turtles are state listed species. And I think that people don't always think about, when they think about wildlife conservation, you think about, the panda, or you think about these exotic species. And I wanted to research and help connect people to the species that are close to home, that are also beautiful and amazing and in need of conservation efforts too.
Oh, cool. We talked about close to home. What kind of turtles can we see here in our part of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so we do have 13 species of turtles here in Pennsylvania. Yes, and I do have some photos to show you. So we won't see all of those in my photos, but we have aquatic species. So most of the species here are going to live in the water, but we do have also the eastern box turtle, which is going to live in your forested areas.
Oh, very cool. Well, let's see some pictures.
Okay.
Thank you, Natalie.
Okay, so first I did have to put this one photo up because it was this project from this photo from 1998. So this was my senior thesis in undergraduate, where I got to study turtles for the first time. So I was studying Midland painted turtles, and I got to put tracking devices on them and track them around, and I'll show you some more pictures of that later on. But this was the spark that has carried my love of turtles for more than 20 years since then.
That's cool. You got to study turtles in college?
I did.
I love it.
It was a blast.
Very cool. All right.
So I do feel very fortunate. I'm an educator now, but I've had many years, almost 15 years of studying reptiles and amphibians, and a lot of different species that you can see here. And I've had the opportunity to study them from coast to coast. So I've studied them in California, I've studied them in Maine, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Illinois. Here, I moved to Pennsylvania a year ago to be an educator, so I can start educating people about these and other important things related to our watersheds. But I have been able to study a lot of cool species, and all the species that you see here on the screen are species that we have here in Pennsylvania. Even though I didn't take these photos in Pennsylvania, these are all species that we have here.
Very cool. And what are they?
So we have
that one in the top looks mean.
He was not, he or she, I don't recall. This one was not too happy that I was picking him up. This is a snapping turtle. So this is a juvenile. So, they get much bigger, and can be, there are they are a more aggressive species and very quick to bite. So you do have to be very, very careful handling them. But if you know how to, and you have to handle them for research purposes, it's okay.
Very good. So kids, if you're watching, leave the snapping turtles alone.
Yes. In general, you should observe wildlife and turtles and not handle them. I would say one exception with turtles would be if you are helping them cross the road. So if you do and can safely, if you do see a turtle that is in the road or on the shoulder about to approach a road, and if you can safely pull over to help that turtle out, that would be the one case where I would say, yes, do help that turtle out and move it across the road. Always move the turtles when you're doing this, though. Always move the turtle in the direction that it's headed. Because if he's headed one way and you take him the other way, all he's going to do, he or she, is going to turn back around and try to cross the road again. So even if he's closer to the one area off the side of the road, put them in the direction, take them in the direction that they're headed. But again, only if you can do that safely. And I'm not advocating that somebody try to pick up a snapping turtle.
Yeah.
To do that, you can maybe kind of get behind him, and especially if you've got something, you can kind of shovel him, not really shovel him, but shoo him along.
Right.
That would be okay.
Very cool. So we have the mean-looking snapping turtle, or maybe it's smiling in this picture. What about the other two?
So this one down here is a Blandings turtle, and these actually, they often, because they have this brilliant orangish yellow chin, they often look like they're smiling. So it's just something about that chin that makes them look like they're smiling. And then we have our softshell turtle here, which is very pancake-like. Which is great because it lives in fast-moving rivers, and so it needs to kind of have that body shape, that really streamlined, flat body shape, in order to be able to swim well and withstand that kind of fast-moving water.
So what does a soft-shell turtle feel like?
Ooh, that's a really good question. They're very smooth. So it's very smooth and silky. So they don't have a hard, like if you were to, kind of knock on, and please don't do this. don't try this at home. But the shell of, say, like the Blandings turtle here or your box turtles, it's very hard, right? And it would create a little knocking noise if you were to tap it. The soft shell turtles, the sides of their shell are much more flexible. It's more like the thickest part of your ear almost, but softer. So yeah, it's more like that cartilage feel.
So
than
hard shell turtles, soft shell turtles.
Yes, exactly.
I got it. Very cool. And where do these kinds of turtles live? So
actually, I have. Let's see. I think my next. Yes. I have some different habitat types. So. Some of our turtles do live in rivers, like this one on the left is Santa Margarita River in California, where I was studying some turtles. A lot live in these kinds of marshy habitats. And then those are, some of your aquatic species. And then like the eastern box turtle that we have here in Pennsylvania is going to live in more woodland habitat. So they really, range in terms of where they live.
Very good. And you said the soft-shelled turtle needs to be soft-shelled in order to live in fast-moving water.
It's more about the shape of the shell. And so later on, I'll point out when we see in a few photos from now, I'll point out the eastern box turtle, and you'll see that it's much more dome. It's got a very high dome shape, which you can tell. I like to describe it as I'm not much of a swimmer, but if I were, it would be much easier for me to swim just like I am with a swimsuit on than if I were trying to swim with my backpack on.
Right.
So because that's giving you, you're less streamlined. So that's kind of how I like to describe it. So now if we go back, this Blandings turtle does live in the water, but it doesn't live in that kind of fast moving water. You can find them in rivers, and I have found them often using rivers, but they prefer more marshy habitats. So standing water, but not flowing water. So they do have a higher dome shell. So you wouldn't necessarily notice just by looking at the shell where it lives. One of the other characteristics you can look at, though, are the feet. So like here, you can see the softshell turtle has more webbed feet. So that's also going to show, and you can't really tell here, but you can tell that these feet might also be good for moving around in wetter conditions. That's not the case of your eastern box turtles.
Got it. Very cool.
Oh. One of the things that's been really cool is if you know, for those that are interested in doing this, you get to learn a lot of different techniques for studying and monitoring turtles. So, you know, got to go out on boats and canoes to set traps. This trap here on the bottom is a common trap for catching aquatic turtles. The turtles swim in, it's a funnel net. They swim in, you usually bait it with, you know, sardines, tuna, chicken liver. And then the turtles can't find their way out. They can't see the opening of the funnel to get out. So you check those every day, sometimes more than once a day, and you can catch your turtles that way.
Cool.
And then here is I mentioned radio tracking. And so this is how I would listen for the signal from a radio tracking device that we would put on turtles. So we can see different. Yes, so these are about, if I recall correctly, these were about 3 years old. These are Blandings turtles. So this is a Blandings turtle adult up here, and these were some of the young ones that we were releasing after we had kind of raised them for a few years. And here is our eastern box turtle. So, you know, our one, you know, land, you know, terrestrial species. All the rest that we have in Pennsylvania are, you know, going to live in more aquatic habitat. You can see here it's got a very high dome shell, so not going to be a very good swimmer. You can't see his feet, but his feet kind of look more like kind of elephant stumps, right? So if you were to see it in person, you would see it wouldn't be a very good swimmer.
Right. And what are those things on the turtles? The blue thing or the little, oh yeah, and there's one right there on that turtle.
Yes, we kind of camouflaged that one. So yes, and there's an antenna coming out here. It's really easy to see on these young ones here. So those are the transmitters. So those are transmitting basically just a signal, a beep, to a handheld device and antenna that I would take out into the field to track the locations of where those turtles would go.
So there's a little radio on each of the turtles, and in that other picture, when you had the television antenna, that helps you find them. Yes.
So this is essentially like, yes, its own little radio station transmitting one, you know, each turtle is transmitting at its own frequency. So if you want to listen to, you know, I kind of describe it if, say you really like rap music and you want to listen to your rap music turtle, you know, if you're in your car and you want to listen to a specific radio station, you tune in, you dial your radio to a specific station. Us listening for turtles works the same way. We're tuning in, it's a radio signal. We're tuning in to the specific frequency that turtle is transmitting. So if I want to listen to one turtle, or just like you want to listen to one kind of music, you're going to dial into that station. And then when I'm ready to track the next turtle, I change the station. Wow. And so then I am the portable receiver with the antenna listening for those turtles.
So you got paid to play with turtles and to study turtles and to listen to turtles?
I did. I got paid to hike around, look for turtles. We got to do a lot of cool things. We even got to collect blood from turtles. So I helped out a graduate student who was looking at needed to collect some DNA, looking at which male turtles sired or fertilized the clutch of eggs for the female turtles. So, and whether or not there was a group of eggs or a clutch or nest of eggs that actually had been sired by multiple males, which happens with turtles.
Turtles have a secret life.
They do. You know, we got to, again, these little guys are so cute. But we always want to make sure, you know, whenever we are handling, I talked about not really, you know, handling them unless you have to. We were always, you know, making sure to collect as much data each time we did handle them so that, you know, we could minimize the number of times we would have to handle an individual, and try to collect as much data as we can, just like, you know, the shell
So
size.
is that a brand new baby turtle?
So that would have been about, yes, that year's hatchling. That was a painted turtle. And so this is the bottom shell that we are measuring here.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. And then we have some turtle eggs here. So one of the projects I was working on, the one with the Blandings turtles where you saw the little guys had transmitters, we actually had a project where we were what's called head starting them. And so we would have females lay their eggs once we knew that they had eggs, which is called being gravid. We would have them actually lay their eggs in our care. And then we would incubate those eggs and then raise those turtles or keep those turtles pretty much until they got past what we called kind of predator bite size, to give them, again, this was a state endangered species. We were trying to give them a better boost at, you know, helping to maintain that population, because one of the things about turtles is that they have a really high mortality rate. So unfortunately, you know, not a lot within a population or within a given nest of eggs will actually make it to maturity where they can actually breed themselves. And it takes several years for turtles to get to that point.
Wait a minute. So you got to play parent to baby turtles, and then when they got big enough, you put a radio transmitter on them, and then you followed them.
Yeah.
So how far do they go? Do they all like hang out together, or do they all go their separate ways? Like, what happens?
They will all go their separate ways, and they all have their, you know, it really ranges in how far their travel. And it depends on the time of year. It depends on, you know, male versus female. It depends on whether it's a year of high precipitation, a lot of rain, or a drought year where they might, you know, some of the areas where they are might dry up. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different variables, and it's of course dependent on the size of your turtle. So, you know, something like a spotted turtle is a pretty small turtle, so they're going to have a smaller range than something like your common snapping turtle, which is a much larger turtle, and they're going to be able to travel far.
I can't believe I could have been a turtle expert or a turtle researcher. No one told me that when I was in school.
Well, you missed out, because I mean, we get to see.
Look at those.
These are
like
all
tiny.
They are tiny. Even, you know, even for people that don't really like common snapping turtles and just think they're aggressive, or I mean, how can you not love? This is a common snapping turtle, you know, a juvenile. How can you not find that adorable? They're really cute. And these are two of the Blandings turtles. Again, this is when they're even younger, so before they're big enough to put on those transmitters. These were ones that we didn't have permission for the females to lay eggs because of the property that they were on. We didn't have permission to have the females lay eggs in our care, but we were able to protect their nest and then bring them in to raise them once they hatched and emerged from their nests. One thing that I don't know, a lot of people don't know, is that turtles, no matter where they live in the world, and I think there's only one species where this is an exception, all turtles, even if they're aquatic, and like I said, most of our turtles here in Pennsylvania are aquatic, they all come on land to nest. So, which is also really important when we're talking about conserving them, right? We don't want to, you know, we can't just conserve, say, the river that they're living in or the marsh, the wetland habitat, but we really have to think about that buffer and that area around where the females are going to come onto land to nest. So that's why these guys are really dirty, because they had to dig their way out of this nest, and then we collected them.
So is the nest underground or like in a hole? How does it?
It is. It kind of looks like a flask. So it's narrow on the top and then kind of opens up into kind of a deeper, wider area. And And so the females will come onto land and they'll dig with their back legs. I think a lot of people may have seen this with sea turtle videos. That's
Right.
very popularized. So these other species are going to do it the same way. They're going to dig their nest with their rear legs, deposit their eggs in there, and then close it back up. And then they leave, and they don't do any parental care. So they leave, and they leave it to their little hatchlings to then make it to the water. So even if they're, 200 meters from the water, those little hatchlings have to make it there. And that's why there's such a high mortality rate for those little guys, and why they don't often make it to the point where they can breed, because they're so vulnerable when they're this little to predators.
So it sounds easy to be a turtle parent, because you just kind of, let them live. You don't have to pay for college or anything. When they're born, are their shells hard or soft?
Oh, that's a great question. So they are actually much softer. So, I mean, the soft shell pretty much feels like an adult soft shell, but those others that have, grow up to have very much harder shells. So like this Blandings one here on the bottom, both of these, when they're this young, their shell is a little bit soft. So you do have to be a little careful with them as well.
Wow, very cool. Well, I know
and
they're
of course,
not going to let us.
Easier for predators to eat that, right? When you think about it, and that's why we want to do whatever we can as people to give them the best chance.
Right. So you're protecting them when they're most vulnerable, and then you release them with a radio transmitter so you can then go find them.
With that study, yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
What else can you show us?
Well, one of the things that I've done a lot of different kinds of career talks. I always, like showing pictures like this, people are like, hi, that's so cool. Even you said, like you can go hiking, you can go camping and get paid to look for turtles
Right.
and other wildlife. I always want to be honest, though, that it's not always, just looking at the cute turtles and stuff, that you will be waist deep in the marsh. You'll be muddy. Your toes won't dry out for, till the next morning. If you have housemates, they won't appreciate that you come home smelling like pond scum. I still would go back and do this all again in a heartbeat if I could.
Wait a minute, is that all the way up to your waist in the picture on the left?
So yes, that was midway between the belly button and the chest.
Wow,
is
that's
how deep
gross.
it got. Yeah. And so yes, and just completely covered in mud. Too hot to also wear waders, so you just wear field clothes that you don't care how muddy they get.
Wow.
There are some other perils as well. So
look at your arms. Oh my God.
Obviously mosquitoes. If you don't time it right and realize that the mosquitoes are hatching then, and so you're not properly protected, this was an instance where I was out in the field for maybe 30 minutes and just got eaten alive at a site, checking some traps. Also, this picture here, the large cattail photo doesn't do it justice, but you can easily get lost in these cattails if you don't have your compass or your GPS is acting up. So when I first moved to the site where I was in this marsh, the cattails were 2 feet above my head, and I was just thrown in to track a turtle, and I could track the turtle because you're following the signal, and then I had to figure out how to get out of there, and I did not record the location of my truck, and it took me 45 minutes to get out of there because I wasn't familiar with that site. It was my first day on the job.
It sounds like hazing to me, but
it was a little bit. I should have thought to GPS my truck, but I was just so excited to get out there with the turtles.
All right, so any kids should remember that. Always remember where you park the truck before you go chasing turtles.
Yes, and also beware of dried cattails. So these are cattails, more in the winter. They will give you some nasty splinters in the face. And those are not fun to pull out because, again, you're focusing on getting your turtle and you're just plowing through there, and cattails are. So there are some hazards.
Yeah.
To working with turtles. But you know, I think that the best
That's not
part,
your thumb?
that is my thumb. That is a musk turtle, or sometimes people call it a stink pot. These are species that we have here in Pennsylvania also. This is, of course, this is a newly hatched juvenile. So this is a baby turtle. So they do get bigger than this. They're a smaller turtle, but this one was just too cute. And the fact that you can, anybody, if you keep your eyes open, turtles are notoriously elusive. So, other than seeing them basking on logs and things, a lot of people don't often see them, but you're also not looking for them. They're camouflage, they're sneaky, and some of them are quite tiny. So I still can't believe to this day that I actually saw this one in the marsh that I was walking through.
That's cool. Now, why did you put turtles in the little red cups?
So yes, who knew that red solo cups had multiple uses, had use in wildlife conservation? So you can see that those turtles are tiny. Those again were hatchling turtles. So they had they'd emerged from their eggs within a couple weeks of this, prior to this. And you can see that each turtle has some little white dots on those. And that's because we were marking them. They're too small to put
played dominoes with turtles?
We did not play dominoes. We were marking them to identify them. So we wanted to identify them with the female that laid the eggs that they emerged from. And then we wanted to know which individual that was. So they each had a very unique marking. And while those marks were drying, we had to actually put them in red solo cups.
That's hilarious. So I know we're beginning to run out of time. I want to keep talking turtles. What are you doing on that other picture with the turtle? Tickling it? Looks like you're tickling the turtle.
As much as I love turtles, I don't try to tickle them. So this is part of what I love to do, is educating people. And so I'm actually showing this man how this is another eastern box turtle, how if you look closely at eastern box turtles, they actually have some ridges on the back of their shell, which is called the carapace. And those are sort of like tree rings. So a lot of people know that as a tree grows, it gets a new ring, and that's its growth ring. Well, these are called annuli on the turtle's shell, and that can show you how old that turtle is. Now, the older the turtle is—
What did you call it? Annuli?
Annuli.
Annuli.
Yep.
So you can count how old a turtle is by counting the rings.
With some species. Now, that smooth, that softshell turtle with that smooth carapace, no ring. And if you look at, and I don't know if with the next, you can't really, you can kind of see it here. So you can see faint lines here.
Right.
And you can see the lines more so here on the eastern box turtle. But if you were looking at these two individuals close up, you would see that there's one center area that's like the center part of that's called a scoot. This whole division of the shell is called a scoot. But if you look at that center area, that would be the size of this scoot when that hatchling emerged from its egg. So you would know how big that little scoot was when it hatched from its egg. So it's just kind of another little tidbit you can look for.
Very cool. Look at that one with the funny nose. What's the one with the funny nose?
That's the softshell turtle again. And that kind of acts like a snorkel. So they also have really long necks. So when they're in those fast moving waters, what they like to do is they basically stay on the bottom of those rivers. Sometimes they'll kind of bury themselves in the silt and the rocks and gravel. But they will let this nose and the very long neck up above the water so that they can breathe and then sink back down. So the long neck and that kind of snorkel looking nose allows them to do that.
I would have called it an elephant turtle, but that's not what they called it. Okay.
Nope.
What about the shiny one in the upper right corner?
So this is a spotted turtle. So we have these are all four of these we have in Pennsylvania. So this is again kind of another small species. They like more marshy kind of habitats, but just very striking with this dark shell and these very prominent, just very clear yellow dots, with spots.
Very cool. So
see, he looks like he's smiling, right?
He does.
That's the Blandings turtle with that orange
Oh, right. You showed us a baby one earlier.
Mhm.
Ah,
Right,
very good.
they
Now,
look like
how
they're
can I
twins.
tell if it's a boy turtle or a girl turtle or other kind of turtle?
Yeah, so it depends on the species, but we have a great example here. So the eastern box turtles here, the males will have, there are a couple different ways, but one way that you can tell, and I know that this picture is a male because it has red eyes. So females will have brown eyes, and the males will have red eyes. So that's one quick way. There's some other things that you can look at, like the shape of the bottom of the shell. With
Right.
certain with your painted turtles, you can look at the length of their claw. Several different things. Body size. Typically, females are going to be larger because they're the ones that are going to have to, produce those eggs.
Ah,
So,
right. Very
but
cool. I
yeah,
am
a lot of
so
different.
excited. And I know we're like probably way past the time we were supposed to talk. Are there any more pictures?
No, this was our last slide of the photos.
Ah, very cool. Well, I've got so many questions. I guess if I want to grow up and become a turtle expert, what do I do? What do I have to study to become a turtle expert?
Biology is just a great way to start because it gives you a lot of diversity in your career paths. It's until you get you want to have kind of a more diverse background, right? You need to know a little bit about you need to know about biology. You need to know a little bit of math. You need to know a little bit about chemistry. You need to know a lot about a bit about lots of different sciences. And then from there, you would go on maybe to focus on more wildlife. So when you're getting that biology degree, trying to take, if you can take a herpetology class, which is a study of reptiles and amphibians,
Herpetology class.
herpetology, take zoology. So you're learning about all different kinds of animals. But then, even before you start studying specifically, people can just learn about their local species, so they can go out and look and see what's out there. Volunteer if there are some organizations. I'm new to the area, so I don't yet know all of the organizations here that would have volunteer opportunities for something like this. But looking for those kinds of opportunities to learn about your local species, because again, I
Right.
think it's important that people kind of think about what's happening in their local area.
Well, I know where my favorite place to find turtles is. In Berks County, my favorite place to find turtles is at Berks Nature in Angelica Park. So there
Mhm.
are all sorts of cool turtles there. Where's your favorite place to find turtles?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. You know, I look for turtles everywhere. Um, yeah, and I haven't explored enough to pinpoint a place here in Pennsylvania. Although I do, see them basking when I hike out at Blue Marsh Lake. So I'll see them basking in areas along there, and when they're basking, they're soaking up that sun just like we might go outside and do. Um, so that's one of the places where I've seen them more frequently, out basking. But yeah, I mean, I just love to be out and look for them anywhere I can. Like I said, a
I
lot of them are
love it.
elusive, so you just got to keep your eyes open.
Very cool. So I know we went way over time and somebody is going to be upset with me because I'm just too interested in turtles. I guess one final question. What's the most bizarre, most strange kind of turtle that there is?
Oh, well, I certainly, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I certainly don't know about all different kinds of turtles around the world. But one of the turtles that I think, and again, this isn't one that we have here. It's not one that we have in the US. It's the snake neck turtle. It does have a very long neck, so you can look it up. And also, it's a little strange because that's one species of snake neck turtle is a species that actually lays its eggs in the water. So I think that's kind of cool because, again, it's got a different strategy than most other turtles, than any other turtle has. So that's one that would jump to mind.
That is so cool. So Natalie, thank you so much I know we were supposed to have live kids and we were going to have all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, we're doing it on Zoom, but thank you so much for sharing your love of turtles with us.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to. You know, I'm always happy to talk turtles.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to when we can go on turtle treks and go find some together. So
absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Natalie, thank you for sharing your turtle talk. And we'll see what else is going to happen here on Earth Day.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Scott.